grateful. All
Hello,
right.
everyone. Welcome to Recreation Rooster, a podcast for health and recreation enthusiasts. I am myisha, co-host, reaching out from the beautiful city of Los Angeles, which is in my backdrop. And
And Dan Chiavo. Yeah, in close to New York City, as you
yes,
see
indeed.
in my background.
Yes. So we're going to go ahead and get started with episode 17, slated to air for April the 22nd, 2024. So thank you for your patience as we get this loaded up for you guys. So let's start out with our quote of the day.
Yes. So this one is I'm a firm believer now that even the baby steps we take, if done in multitudes, will eventually cover a lot of ground. So I'm going to say that one more time. I'm a firm believer now that even the baby steps we take, if done in multitudes, will cover a lot of ground. So makes a lot of sense to me that if we keep going, keep taking those steps, it eventually adds up. And
Totally.
yeah, you make a little bit of progress at a time, and it's eventually going to become big progress.
I love that. And that is so true when it comes to just the whole groundwork that we have as recreation therapists when it comes to the therapy model. The fact that we set feasible goals and we set in milestones and objectives with our clients where we meet them right where they're at. And gradually over time, we're able to accomplish goals and to help to restore, rehabilitate, and recover, and then even at times to maintain optimal functionality. So I love that quote. That's a fabulous quote. It speaks to the groundwork of recreation therapy as well. So thank you so much, guys, for this quote. If you hear something that piques your interest, please drop it in the comments on YouTube. We would love to hear from our viewership. And next up, guys, we have our song of the day.
Yes, which is New York, New York by Frank Sinatra.
All
I
right,
just
New
came back from
York,
New
New York.
York.
I love Frank Sinatra, legendary man and artist and activist. Just a wonderful, I would say, person of impact and change. Why did you choose him, Dan?
Oh, well, it's it just seems to kind of be one of those uh popular songs that people really like. So, and he's popular. He's yeah, he's been around forever. So, I mean,
That is so true. I think people just start singing off the top and they sing full voice. It's a beautiful experience. Let me see who else is like that. Whenever we play any what is her name? I Will Survive by Miss Gaynor, or other classics, even a few like I Got You Baby by Cher and her husband. So definitely Frank Sinatra has so many hits. I mean, his discography is amazing. It's one that every recreation therapist should have in their catalog of music. Absolutely. And also, it's very family friendly. Many of his songs that it can be sung and recognized by multiple members of the family. It's very appropriate for families as well.
yeah,
Yes.
definitely for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Our next segment is pushing forward actionable steps in advocacy for recreation therapy. Take it away, Dan.
Yes, and for this segment, I'm going to encourage you all to present at conferences, educational conferences, whether related to recreational therapy or a related field like education or OT or any other kind of allied health professionals. We need to be part of that health and wellness space. So that is kind of what I'm advocating for today. So keep doing it. Keep presenting. If you haven't done it before, I would highly encourage you to.
I agree with you, Dan. I think it was so important that you just said for that health and wellness space. We as RTs have to understand that that mass markets need access to recreation therapy now more than ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Non-pharmacological methods of maintaining health and wellness and recovering back to homeostasis is super critical. And I feel like this is a time where many different disciplines, be it allied health or even, physical medicine, arenas, within the health and wellness space, they are all observing the benefit. So, speaking at, a national American Medical Association conference, or speaking at a nursing conference, or speaking at a psychiatry or psychology conference as a recreation therapist is
yeah,
now more embraced and more appropriate than ever now. No longer is it just a time when we have a psychiatrist come to an RT conference to talk about rapid eye movement or other things, and we pay them, but then we don't pay the RTs. No, we should also be paid speakers at other conferences, whether or not they are recreation therapy hosted or non-recreation therapy hosted. So definitely get your fillers out there. Submit those proposals to speak, and you will see how relevant our services are. And then of course deliver it with the utmost, relevance and passion and spiritedness and competence. As a speaker, pair up with another speaker like me and Daniel have done in the past. If you don't feel comfortable speaking solo, you can pair up with another therapist or even have a third therapist and break the time up into, smaller increments to make it easier for you to speak on the topics that you are the subject matter on. What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
yeah. I would say don't overthink it. Just do it. Really. I mean, it's actually not as difficult as you feel like. You just come up with a topic. Nobody expects you to be perfect. They're on your side when they're watching you. They want to see you do well. So just go for it, do it. Really.
Absolutely. Just do it, as Nike says. Just do it, okay? Get out there, magnify your voices. Because if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it for us. Just be mindful of that. And what you don't want someone else speaking for you because they may get it wrong or they may have other intentions, and you may be represented incorrectly, right? So just be mindful of that. It is not just their fault, but the fact that you didn't speak up, you have to hold accountability for your silence as well. Okay. So get out there, get to those conferences. I would love to hear about more RT speaking at RT conferences and non RT sponsored conferences. Let's get out there and show the world how great we are. Okay, guys, let's do it and do it now. Okay. All right, guys. Next up, we're going to talk about below the surface recreation and leisure subcultures. So I thought it was pretty cool to talk about glass blowing. I had a great opportunity to go to a glass blowing class where we made ornaments. I've even been to many festivals where there are housewares and decorative wares that you can buy to enhance the beauty of your home and to speak to your sense of fashion and style when it comes to house decor. And then the beauty of glass blowing is many of these items are not just beautiful, but they're functional. You have many people that use different type of glassware for entertainment and for everyday use, drinking, eating, and what's not. So just talking about, the beautiful but dangerous art of black glass blowing and how these people that do this on a regular basis, many of them are artisans and about how they have to have skill sets in handling very, very hot materials, handling different metals and anvils, and then just the whole thing of having a lung capacity to blow into these very hot glass, liquid glass, and not breathe in any of the other stuff. Like I did it, and I promise you, I made the smallest ornament for my Christmas tree, for my holiday tree, and it was the hardest thing for me to blow into. I really respect the physical stamina and also the the artistic creativity of the glass blowing community. Have you come in contact with any glass blowers, Daniel, or partaked in any of their beautiful artwork?
No, not really, but it is a very interesting subculture. Yeah, very interesting
Yeah,
subculture. There's so
absolutely.
many
Every
subcultures.
year, oh, excuse me, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Every year, I get to go down to Laguna Beach. They have a festival called I believe it is called the Tour de Elegance or de France. It's something similar to that. I might be the pageant day tour, I believe is what it's called. Please forgive me if I got the name wrong, but pretty much it is a a artist festival where they actually reenact scenes from major works of music, plays, and books, and they have real life people that dress up in costume and they hold poses. So you walk from scene to scene while the music is playing, and they're either holding the pose or they're dancing. They're like acting out the scene from a play or from a movie or from a book or from a song, and no one's speaking. It's just the music playing. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And it just so happens that this particular festival that happens every year in Laguna, it also has a artist, I would say an artist booths where you can buy everything from furniture to artwork. You can buy so many things, and many of the glass blowers are there for this festival as well. Let's see, but yeah, it's in Laguna Beach and it's every year, and it's really beautiful. It is really beautiful. Trying to think of the name of that festival. Let's see, it's called the Festival of Arts and Pageant of the Masters. That's what it's called. Pageants of the Masters. So look that up, guys. We've even taken groups of clients to this festival, and I tell you, every year it gets better and better, and it's always amazing, and it's always glass blowers there as well. So check that out. So next up, guys, we want to talk about behind the numbers. So one thing we wanted to highlight, just in particular being April, we wanted to highlight it, autism awareness. So we wanted to mention a number in particular when it comes to statistics. 1 in 36 children in the United States have been impacted by autism, some mildly, some profoundly. So with that being said, just imagine that 1 in 36. So if the average classroom in, let's just say, Los Angeles County elementary school systems has 36 to has 32 to 36 children in the classroom, you may encounter one child within that group that has autism, a diagnosis of autism. So, with that being said, we have to rethink how we engage with our children to ensure that they can have academic and social emotional intelligence, and also life skills, opportunities to socialize, and and interact with others in a positive, productive, and sustainable way. Evermore, there is a need for recreation therapists in school and learning environments. I believe that recreation therapists give a great perspective and a host of interventions that prove to be very successful with children who learn differently, who, as we say, are neurodiverse. With that being said, I feel like, recreation therapists, they give opportunity to have multisensory stimulation and interventions with children that have neurodiversity, that proves to help them to maintain attention, help them to express themselves, sometimes in nonverbal ways, help them to regulate their mood, and help them to socialize with others. So that is our behind the numbers. We talk about autism. Dan, anything you want to add?
It's a very important area, very much one that's coming to life more and more. The research and development behind it has grown exponentially in recent years. The different placements of kids are moving more towards including as many people as possible, like myisha was saying about including those kids into a mainstream classroom. That's been the big push, and I mean, that's something that we can definitely help with. So this is a challenge and an opportunity, and one that we are rising to
Yes, we
in
are.
our field.
And as the wave spreads east, here on the West Coast, there are a considerable amount of recreation therapists that work with children on the autism spectrum in learning environments. It is becoming a mainstay, and we're seeing the tangible deliverables of improvement in academic performance and social emotional learning and socialization of these children. And also these children that turn into teenagers that turn into young adults as well. And as this wave of acceptance of recreation therapy in school environments becomes stronger and stronger, by us magnifying and speaking about and spotlighting the successes that we have as recreation therapists, we'll see more and more opportunities happen on the East Coast when it comes to, the children that live on the East Coast who may be on the autism spectrum that need us. They need us. They really do. And it is not just children, it's also teenagers and it's also young adults all the way up. We are lifestyle therapists. We don't just work with a client for a number of weeks or a number of months or a number of years. We work with clients for a lifetime. What better time to start than when they need us most in their youth? Yeah, so that is the behind the numbers. And happy Autism Awareness Month as well to everybody. Next up, guys, we have a brand new segment that Dan and I are so happy to speak about on episode 17. And that is the Iron Sharpens Iron segment. And this segment focuses on navigating workplace dynamics as a recreation therapist. Okay. We all know it can get kind of rough for us to navigate workplace dynamics. Oftentimes, our departments are one of the smaller departments. Some agencies may only have 1 to 2 recreation therapists who are assigned or hired or might be contracted, and they may not even work the same shift. So many RTs out of school, they go into different work environments where they may be the only one. Oftentimes, we do find a considerable amount of encroachment as well, and we oftentimes find ourselves with supervisors who are not RTs. So, with that being said, Daniel and I felt it was so critical, especially now, to add this new segment called Iron Sharpens Iron, navigating workplace dynamics as an RT professional. Okay, so today I wanted to speak about how to manage a non RT supervisor. Okay. So what do we do as RTs when we have a supervisor who knows little about what we do as a professional? They cannot sign off on any of our clinical supervision. Oftentimes they may misrepresent what we do on a day-to-day basis. They may not know the level of work that we put into programming and program facilitation, clinical documentation, program evaluation, plan of cares, treatment teams. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So I would often say, me being an RT for the last 22, 23 years and never really ever having an RT supervisor, number one is take the approach that you are the expert, the subject matter expert. You need to put things in perspective. Be respectful, of course, but be mindful that you are the expert when it comes to what you have been trained to do. Understand that their role primarily is administrative. It is not clinical, it is administrative. They are to ensure that you have the supplies and the tools that you need, the resources that you need, that for timekeeping purposes, for environmental safety, all these other administrative tasks that supervisors do, that is their wheelhouse. However, when it comes to clinical considerations as an RT, that is your wheelhouse. So I often say some things are up for negotiation and some things are not. So should you be meeting with your social worker or your psychology or your psychologist or your psychiatric technician or your psychiatrist supervisor for program planning? No, that's not their wheelhouse. Now, things that have to do with logistics of your program planning, such as getting time slots and access to rooms, access to support staff, that's their wheelhouse. They are to supply you with tools and resources so that you, as a practitioner, can do your job and do it effectively. But are they to critique your plan of care, tell you what doesn't make sense, what does make sense, and all of that other stuff? No, that is not their wheelhouse. That is not what they're supposed to be doing. So the question lies: how do you set that boundary? So what I have done in the past is I've been very particular about making sure that I communicate effectively, that I frame certain statements as a I am doing this, other than can I do this? What do you think about this? No. And then at the end, after I mention I am doing this and speak about either a program that I'm going to be implementing this or whatever, then list out your needs and ask them, can they be of assistance? Okay. So always frame it in a sense that you are prescribing your programming, and these are the logistical things that I need in order for this program to be successful. And then, of course, always list out the benefits to your clients so that it can click in that non-RT's supervisor's head, the benefit to the clients, and that it is in step with the mission or the goal of the agency. Dan, any insights into this one? This one can be a big one.
I agree. Well described. I mean, probably, you described it as well or better than I could. So very good.
Thank you, Dan. There was also one thing that you did mention earlier in our pre-planning for this episode. You mentioned about having a supervisor who is an RT, but they just have not been a practicing RT for a considerable amount of time. Could you give us some insights into that dynamic?
Um, Personally, no, it was just something I thought of.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah.
So I myself, I've never had an RT as a supervisor. However, I will say I've always reached out and had other RTs as mentors. But I have heard some nightmare stories about folks who do have RTs as supervisors, but that RT hasn't been practicing for umpteen years and have since to have lost their clinical skills or they just decided one day they don't want to be an RT no more. I've come across that as well.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, also probably one of the things, I mean, of course, that was, um, I mean, some of them maybe have been practicing, I would, could imagine. I mean, I don't know how much has changed and how much is universal, but I know that there's been, of course, and recently more of a, shift towards participant directed programs and that type of a thing, as opposed to
mm,
uh, much more of a practitioner directed, you
right,
know,
right.
and right, the whole person-centered care model is much bigger now, possibly, than it was back then. So, yeah, so there might have been, yeah, I mean, supervisors that really really, when they were practicing, really weren't really that familiar um, with that. So,
I think that's so great that you mentioned that, even though I know that's going to be a really good segment when we could dive into that further about participant led groups that are RT designs versus a RT led group. I have come across some RTs that have had different perspective on guiding group versus actively engaging in group. I've even had some administrators who were not RTs have, choice words about RTs that want to participate in group versus, guiding the group. Personally, I feel like the supply budget should include the RT engaging with the clients, not just, um, assigning, instructing, and watching. So if that means that you have a group of 12 clients and you need 13 art kits, and you have an administrator who's saying, why do you need 13 art kits, it's only 12 clients. Well, I need my art kit too, because I'm the facilitator and I'm actively engaging with my clients. So that's going to be a really good segment. I'm glad that you did mention that. But those are the slight nuances and the dynamics oftentimes that an RT who has been supervised by a non-RT has to explain, and it can get quite frustrating, right? Because they're
sure. Well, I mean, also the whole principle I know in long-term care that, uh, you know, everybody is a joiner. It's getting the numbers of these participants up. Well, I mean, I got people in my family who are not joiners. So when they're, 85, 90 years old, they go into a nursing home or something like that. Uh, they're probably going to want to keep more to themselves than to read a book and read a book or something like that, and not necessarily engage in structured programming. So, and
right.
meeting all the needs of the residents, um, is meeting people where they're at. So that's why, it's a little bit different than what it once was. I mean, the resident has the right to say, I don't want to do this. I could be part of,
Absolutely.
like,
Absolutely. I am perfect agreement with you on that. The
yeah,
element of choice is something that I feel that we as recreation therapists have, that many of our clients appreciate. We're one of the few disciplines that they have a right to say no, and we can give them an alternative. Yeah, definitely. All right,
right.
guys. So the next segment is cornering the market, tips for success in private practice. So I wanted to, just mention the breaking news about the U.S. government making the decision that non-compete clauses that are oftentimes in contracts and in subcontractor agreements are now banned in the United States. Okay. So me being a therapy practice owner, I do have a non-compete clause in my contracts that I use. And oftentimes when I was a subcontractor for other agencies, I too had a non-compete clause. So let's just dive into it a little bit, okay? Because this is super important when it comes to making sure that the lines are clearly defined about what can happen and what cannot happen when you are working in private practice. So oftentimes a non-compete clause can have one or two things in it. One, it can have a clause that simply says that while you are working with them, you cannot work for a competitor. Okay. It can also stipulate if the competitor is anyone that is national, or if it's a certain amount of a geographic, certain perimeter of their geographic region. Okay. Also, to another section of a non-compete clause can simply state that you cannot solicit the clients, contracts, or agencies that particular firm that you're working for that they have contracts with, meaning that you can't go behind your boss's back and sign and undercut their rate and then get their contract with the company that they've got a contract with. It's very unethical, but unfortunately you have a lot of therapists that tend to do that. Also, too, a third thing is also stating, oftentimes in a non-compete clause, is that if you have discontinued working for a particular agency, that you can't go back and say, okay, I want half of my clients to come with me. And I know you assign me my client's boss, but I want half of my clients to come with me. So I'm just going to ask them to come with me. So pillaging of clients is another thing, because sourcing clients is very difficult. So, pillaging of clients and saying, okay, I'm going to charge you $10 less, or I'm better than that agency, you should come with me. That kind of stuff is very unethical. You do have some therapists who do that, unfortunately. So now let's fast forward to current day. This non-compete clause is now being removed from contracts. So with that being said, especially being an owner, I'm wondering what is going to replace it, or if anything's going to replace it at all. So with that being said, moving forward, guys, if you go and you sign a contract with an agency, they cannot restrict you from working with the competitor concurrently. They cannot restrict you from soliciting clients at a company or facility that you've been assigned to see other clients at. They cannot stop you from pitching your own business while you're working for another business. They also cannot stop you from, upon ending a subcontractor agreement with an agency, from asking your clients to go along with you. Okay, so it's going to be the wild, wild west for a little while. But my thing is this: please, please conduct yourself in the most ethical and therapeutic manner. Understand at the end of the day, it is about the well-being and safety of the clients. You will make the money as long as you possess professionalism, competence, and proficiency in your services, that you can delineate why someone should prefer you over another. Okay. And it doesn't mean that you have to resort to backbiting or anything. If you sever ties with a staffing agency that you have worked with, your clients will let you know if they want to go with you or if they want to stay where they're at. But you are not to make phone calls and say, hey, come with me, type of thing. Word of mouth is a great thing. I must admit, back in 2016, um, after I no longer worked with a very large staffing agency, um, I never solicited any of my former clients or businesses. However, word is spread of the great work that I did as a therapist. And just by me being able to have a good reputation as a therapist, people began to seek me out from different schools, different clinics, because they knew the great work that I did on the side privately, and then also on my standard 40-hour work week job. So good reputation and conducting yourself in an ethical way is the way to go. And non-compete clause or no non-compete clause, you're going to do just great. All right. So that's that segment. What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
I agree. Yeah. Um, I mean, that is very interesting. that the non-compete clauses were banned. Uh, this could lead to some unethical situations potentially. I'm wondering. So, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll see. You know,
yeah.
it's going to be interesting. And I think really what it is that for those business owners that exploited their subcontractors and really bullied, intimidated them, and exploited them, like I mentioned before, this is the ruling that eliminates that kind of behavior from happening. I'm very happy to say that I've always tried to have a very harmonious and good rapport with my subcontractors because I understand that you should incentivize someone working for you and that there should be a win-win situation when it comes to especially private work. That's your side money, guys. You should be able to enjoy what you do and get paid um, market rate for that, in my opinion. That's always been my thoughts. Okay. So next up, guys, we have our third to the last segment for episode 17, and it's called Nuts and Bolts in Therapeutic Recreation, where we talk about equipment and supplies. Take it away, Dan.
Yeah, and in this case, it is really more just about like spring cleaning. It's that time of year, kind of, and we all have seasonal supplies, whether you're in well, especially say long-term care, that type of a thing. I've often had situations where I've inherited a closet that's quite messy and disarray, or in conditions where there was flooding in basements and other areas. So, uh, it's very important to, especially your seasonal supplies that you don't use all the time, and you might to keep them like in an order where you actually know where they are and can use them when necessary, and that they're in a cool, dry place that's safe. That's very important because you don't want them to get ruined.
Absolutely. Supplies cost money. And, we got to stretch them, guys. We got to stretch them. As you guys know, we may be coming up on a recession soon. So it's going to get even tighter with the budgets. So we have to do our due diligence and take care of our things, right? Cold, dry place, off the ground, organized, put away with care, taken out with care. It always turns my I would say it turns my it makes me feel some kind of way when someone doesn't take care when it comes to putting away the supplies. I'm like, okay, those are, holiday lights. We need those. Those are very expensive. Let's be diligent and take great care in putting them away. Let's not just throw them into a corner somewhere and then wonder why they don't work the next season. So, things like that is very near and dear to me because that kind of money is hard to come by. And I mean, let's be mindful and take care of our things. So I'm glad that you did mention, especially for this segment of nuts and bolts and TRs, about how we take care of our supplies and equipment. That's super important. Procurement and maintenance, so important. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, next up, guys, is the therapist friend clinical tips. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about visual cueing and how it's so important in programming. So, whether or not you are normalizing clinical settings by putting up um, posters, pictures, images, whether or not you are doing visual cueing in your attire that you wear on a day-to-day basis, setting up opportunities for your clients to have customized wear via tie-dye, bubble paints, personalized names on hats and whatnot. Silk screening. I used to always do silk screening every season, to show client pride when it came to different units and stuff. That was always a great thing. Um, just visual cueing is super important. As you guys know, many clients are visual learners and some are audible learners, and then others, they are more hands-on. I also feel like we get to transform environments that oftentimes are very stark and cold into very warm environments. The use of color and light and different textures is super important. Staying in compliance with, auditors and stuff, not to have a lot of tape and stuff, but ensuring that you work with your plant ops and your facility management department to properly install different visual cues, and visual aesthetics is super important. That's something that I feel that a lot of people don't know artists do. We work a lot with our plant ops to create spaces that are conducive to treatment. So I always take into strong consideration in your plan of care how important visual cueing and visual aesthetics are in your work environment for your clients. Any thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. The visual cueing is one area where it's good for a lot of populations. Some of our participants struggle to read, so having those visual cues as well is also somewhat beneficial, and it does kind of lead to a much more warmer environment than with pictures and colors and other stimuli that is attractive to the eye and appealing and great for reminders and cues and other avenues. It helps participants become more independent and reminds people visually, non-verbally. In some ways, I feel like we kind of remember things in picture sometimes better than in words. So.
Absolutely, I agree. And I love the fact that you said that for our clients who might be illiterate or have the inability to read due to vision impairment, the fact that sometimes these visual aesthetics are their landmarks, as well. So, just even the whole thing of communication. That's great. That's a great thing to point out as well. So many tools in our arsenal as recreation therapists. We're simply amazing. I'm telling you guys, we really are. Never underestimate yourself and all the great things that you can do to impact lives, okay? On a day-to-day basis. And next up, guys, we have our last segment, which is our Recreation through Rooster Stamp of Approval, where we, meaning Dan and I, recognize a facility, agency, or even a recreation therapist who we find to be outstanding. So today, Dan has someone in mind. Share with us, Dan.
Indeed, today, Fadja Roberts-Carr. She owns Ignite One and really has put herself in the center of the health and wellness space in New Jersey. That's really what the types of areas that she has dealt with is the health and wellness space, a lot of yoga, fitness, what else? Uh, I mean, she has counseling and psychotherapy and health coaching and wellness coaching, and they offer a number of services. www.myignite1.com is their website, and they have a number of recreational therapists all over the state of New Jersey, and it's they do weight loss, nutrition, health coaching, trying to tackle childhood obesity, eating disorders, and other general wellness services. So that's very good.
I love that. She sounds simply amazing, her and her team, trailblazing over there in New Jersey. And also, guys, take strong notice of how Dan mentioned many of the social determinants of health issues that Miss Roberts and her team are addressing at their private practice. I think that's simply amazing. We need more and more RTs in these spaces, guys. Think about your surrounding community and how you can trailblaze, and let Recreation Rooster acknowledge you for the great work that you and your team are doing. So we want to give Miss Fadja Roberts a Recreation Rooster stamp of approval hand clap
Yeah,
today. All right,
and not
guys.
only that, I mean, she also has worked with the Department of Developmental Disabilities there to get into ISP, into participants' ISPs. For third-party reimbursement of services, and that's not something that's easy to do. So it's very good. She's done a very good job.
Yes, trailblazer for sure, and changing lives along the way. So, with that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Recreation Rooster Podcast, episode 17, April 22nd, 2024. Please feel free to like, share, comment, follow. We would love to hear from you. You can reach out to Dan or I. You can find me at myisha at recreationrooster.org. You can also reach out to me at 213-524-6925, which is my staffing and consulting firm for recreation therapy in Los Angeles, California, though we serve nationwide. And Dan?
Yeah, I could be reached at Daniel at recreationrooster.org. That's Daniel at recreationrooster.org. Or 845-987-0104. That's 845-987-0104. You could check us out at www.recreationrooster.org. Feel free to get a t-shirt, and please feel free to like, share, subscribe to our channel, and we hope to hear from you soon. We'll hear from you soon.
All right. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you
Bye.
so much for tuning in.